Hello everyone. Over here I have a lens, and it would be an understatement if I would say that I'm not excited about this lens. This is the Sirui 23mm f.1.2. It's one of three lenses that Sirui recently released, and they call them Sniper series. This is the 23mm, but there's also a 33 and a 56. All of them are in a similar size, and they are all having an aperture of 1.2. This is, however, not a review. It's just going to be my first impressions. I only had this lens for a couple of hours, but I still managed to take some pictures with it. This pictures is nothing as what I normally do when I'm doing reviews. When I do a review, I have to take a lot of pictures and I have to work with the lens for a long amount of time to really understand the lens and to see what kind of character it has so I can share that with you. This is therefore just my first impressions of this lens. Let's talk about some technical specifications. This lens came in three different colors. This is the black one, which has some nice carbon fiber. It comes with a plastic hood, which I'm probably never gonna use on the lens because I like my lenses to be tiny. It also comes with a lens cap, which is pretty nice, but I'm probably gonna lose that one too. Therefore, I need to put a filter on it, and if you want to put a filter on this lens, it fits 58mm filters. The connection to the camera is made of metal, and there's a USB for firmware updates. There's, however, no weather gasket, and this one is not weather sealed. The price I paid for this lens was $299, including shipping. That was an early bird offer, so if you buy this lens, you're probably gonna have to pay a little bit more. But if the image quality isn't good, well, then it doesn't matter that it's cheap and it's a good deal on the lens. But I can tell you already now that the image quality of this lens is good. Seems like this lens has a certain character, which I often like. Many of the Sirui lenses are made for shooting films rather than stills. However, this lens has autofocus, and what I hope is that some of that character that you often want when you're shooting film goes into this lens too, and you will get all of that for stills. Size-wise, this lens is smaller than I initially thought it would be. If we compare it to my other 23mm lens here, which is a Viltrox 1.4, it's not much bigger, which is nice. Here's a comparison with a Fujifilm 16mm. Lastly, here we have the 27mm pancake lens from Fujifilm. If we compare it with a camera, we can see that it's not overly huge and it balances well with my Fujifilm X-T5. When I put this lens on a camera, I don't feel like it's an overly huge lens. I would not mind using this for street photography and walking around and doing street photography with this lens, which is a good thing because that's my main thing that I'm doing. Let's have a look on those images that I've shot so far so we could see what we could expect initially from this lens. First out is the beaver. There's not much to say about the beaver, but if we have a look around the eye, where I put the focus, we can see that it's a little bit soft, but we also see that there is details. So even if it's soft, it still has details, which is a good thing because as long as the details are there, they are recoverable by adding sharpening. The second image here, if we zoom in here, we can see some ghosting around the G-Master logo. We see some purple fringing. We see some green chromatic aberration. And, well, the fringing goes around most of the highlights in this image. It's also worth mentioning that this image was, of course, as every other image, shot wide open at 1.2, because why would you shoot anything else when you have that 1.2 lens? If we zoom in here, a good thing is that we don't see so much of that purple fringing in these areas around the tree. Could be different in the daytime, but this is what we see here. However, if we go into this area, we see some of that ghosting going on, and also the contrasting edges between the white and black here. We also see some stuffs going on there. Yep, it is what it is. Cool thing with this lens is that you can come pretty close. The closest focusing distance is, well, short. Not a macro, but it's pretty short. Let's zoom in here. We still see details on closer distances. We also see all those things and artifacts going on around highlighting and contrasting edges. Let's have a look on my model here to see how the character would be on a portrait. We also have some bokeh here, and what we see on the bokeh is that towards the edges it starts to change shape, and it starts to get a little bit of that cat eye bokeh, while more centered in the frames it's a little bit rounder. However, let's zoom into the eye and look at those details. Now we're at 100%. This is shot with an X-T5, so it has those 40 megapixels. And if we zoom in, well, we see that it's soft around the eye, but the details are there. Let's have a look on a wider portrait, half body portrait without the body. If we zoom in here, we see the same thing. The details are there, but it's a little bit soft. If we also have a look on the bokeh, we kind of see some green rings around the bokeh balls. And I'm curious to see in further test exactly what kind of bokeh this lens produces. But let's go back to this one and zoom in, because we have to talk about that softness and adding sharpness in post-processing. This is how it looks like by default in Capture One. And if we increase the sharpening, let's increase it to 560. And let's clone that variation, and so we can compare the original to the one with sharpness added. Let's zoom in. This is sharpness added, and this is the original. And we see that those details pops if you add sharpness, and it reacts in a good way on sharpness. It doesn't destroy the image or anything like that. So we know that these images reacts good if you add sharpness in post-processing. Let's have a look on the beaver again and go down to the slider here, and boom, 600. And yeah, it reacts good as the other ones. Let's clone that variant and reset the sharpness so we can compare. This is by default, and this is with sharpness added. So back and forth, we see that adding sharpness brings out those details, which is a good thing. The next thing I was looking at was how it would compare to another lens shot at an aperture of 1.4, because sometimes manufacturers can say this is a 1.2 lens, but is it actually brighter than other lenses? Well, there's only one way to find out, and the good thing here is that compared to the f.1.2 here, it gets brighter. So if we look by them side by side, in the top we had 1.4, and in the bottom we have 1.2. Jump back and forth, we clearly see that there's an increase in brightness. And that's a good thing, because it seems like Sirui is actually delivering what they claim to do. surprising thing though, and this is the first time I'm actually comparing 1.2 towards a 1.4 lens, and the difference in light is not as big as you might think. However, if we have a look on the background blur and we look on the details here on 1.2, then we go to 1.4 and we go back and forth, we clearly see that in this regard there's a bigger difference compared to when it comes to the brightness. I feel like you get more for your money when it comes to background blur and 1.2 compared to the extra light you get to the sensor. We also see some bokeh balls here, and this is 1.4, and if we go to 1.2 we can see that they get bigger. Extreme details here, 1.2 and the 1.4. They are pretty similar, which is a good thing because I kind of like that 1.4 lens, which is the Viltrox lens. They are similar in price, they are similar in size. So getting that 1.2 for same money, that's pretty nice. Okay, my friends, that was the images I've done so far. It's not so much and it's not really in-depth in any way, but I just had this lens for a couple of hours and I wanted to share my very first impressions with you. I'm literally rushed home in order to get that very last daylight in order to try it out. The only real conclusion I can come up with now is that I don't have any regrets spending my own money buying this lens. And I'm looking forward to try it even more and make a real review of this lens and share that with you. And if you want to see that, you could click here to subscribe, and you could click here to see a playlist related to camera stuffs. And if you don't want to miss out that upcoming review, you could also click that bell icon, and then you're gonna get a notification when I'm releasing that. Meanwhile, keep shooting and keep exploring your passion for photography. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.